$1 million.
Done.
You sign it off.
Okay, item 15.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah. Come out to Manukau.
Now, I just
11:30 then,
want to
I
help.
think we go.
Have I got a quorum? 1, 2. No. 1, 2, 3.
I move that it be put, because I think this is straightforward.
We lapse.
It's not straightforward.
Hey,
Okay, we're back
definitely
to quorum.
straightforward.
Ladies and gentlemen, item 15, I just want to say, but this is actually going out for consultation. This is not the final.
thanks,
Do I
Ian.
need 11? Sorry, I need one more.
Ian.
What? I'm sure I could be 2 as chair.
Size of two.
quorum.
We're still not quorum.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I'll text him.
Is Mr. Watson.
Wait, quick, run. Now we're off. Rock and roll.
Okay, let's go. Andrew, I'd like to ask you to introduce the item, please.
This report asks you to approve for consultation a proposal for an accommodation provider targeted rate, which you asked us to bring to you when you adopted the accommodation provider targeted rate last year. You asked us to give some remissions last year to providers who may have struggled to pass on the new rate using our miscellaneous remissions policy, but to come back with a formal policy proposal this year. So this is to go out to consultation to get the community's views. While there is a single proposal in here, the consultation materials also discuss some alternatives to give you the opportunity to consider the community's views and the views in particular of the sector on this. We've focused on small investors who might have a couple of properties and who can't pass on the rate because they've got a fixed rental from an operator. Happy to answer any questions.
Right. Any questions? Remember, it's going out for consultation. This is not the final. It's what the staff, after discussion, think should go out. Councillor Walker.
Through you, Madam Chair, I understand that the accommodation industry still has issues around the accommodation targeted rate. Is there further information you've got on this that's leading into the long-term plan?
Not part of this item,
And I don't
Councillor Walker.
expect you to expand on that much, but
Could you share that later? It's not part of this item.
Yeah.
In the interests of time, it's not part of this
Brevity.
item. Could you please talk to him after the meeting? Thank you. I will move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Collins. Any other questions or comments?
Just a brief comment, Chair. I understand, and I want to acknowledge the staff for a very good piece of work, but my continued concern around service departments is that the service department component of commercial accommodation is increasingly important to getting the commercial accommodation investment offering over the line in the first place. And so I'm loath to, frankly, we're talking about a conclusion of a remission scheme for that particular sector. That is, my view is that the cost of this will make it even less attractive for people to invest in the service department space at a time when it is a very important means of delivering the commercial accommodation, and that being the case, it will constrain the delivery of that product and the delivery of those beds moving forward, because there's very little capital, there's very little investment return on it. So hopefully the consultation confirms that, Madam Chair, because I think we do need to have a further debate on it.
Okay, so this is not the decision making.
Yep.
You made a point, so it's going out for consultation. We did add a recommendation to tell you what meeting that the decision will be made in, so everyone's really clear. Any other comment, questions? Right, I'll move the recommendations. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Then we move into the rates remission postponement policy review. And there have been some amendments since your agenda was printed, so I will draw your attention somehow when it happens. to the board. Right, and Andrew, I might ask you to potentially open the item and just take us through the additions that we have discussed re the amendments.
So the council is required by the Local Government Act to review its remission and postponement policy every 6 years. Current policy was adopted 6 years ago, so we have to do a review now. We're proposing some changes which would go out for consultation, so no final decisions now, just presenting something to the community so they can let you know their views and you can make a decision in May alongside the long-term plan. The changes to the recommendations add a little bit of detail, so by looking at the recommendations you can see more clearly what's encompassed by Resolution B Roman numeral 1 and specifying the date when we'll report back. There's two parts to our remission policy. There's one set of remission schemes that apply across the region and every ratepayer's able to apply for those. Making a couple of changes there. One is that getting rid of our licence to occupy retirement villages remissions because the government's now made these properties eligible for a rates rebate, so we don't need that anymore. We're also making some administrative changes to make it easier for people to apply for remission of rates penalties, particularly when there's been a death in the family. We're not going to make that something they have to communicate. It's a bit easier for them in dealing with that. So that's one set of primarily administrative changes we're seeking feedback on. There's a second set of remission policies that apply in some of the former areas of the council, providing support for community sporting and natural heritage activities. We're proposing that they be replaced with the same amount of money, but it's via a grant system to make the spending of that ratepayers' money more transparent and more equitable with all the other groups who come seeking money, with a 3-year transition period. Now, particularly in relation to these proposals, staff have listened to the feedback from your workshop last week and from the reports we presented to the local boards before Christmas and made a number of adjustments to what we were originally proposing. So we've got a 3-year transition, give people plenty of time to develop their relationships with the council and to ensure that where they're providing value for the community, that's properly considered. Also, there were some concerns from the North Shore boards and one of the North Shore councillors about the way in which the council supported in a broad sense community and sporting outcomes across the city and noted that that was done quite differently in different parts. And accordingly, where the money might be going to a local grant rather than a regional one, we've put that in local asset-based services because it more appropriately sits there. And we're also making arrangements for staff to report back during the 3-year period about how this support will be integrated into our broader strategies for the equitable delivery of these outcomes across the city. There'll be a couple of the key things there. We'll also note that quite a chunk of the money goes to regional grants as well, reflecting in particular a concern that there was a consistent approach to organisations who may be receiving these remissions in different parts of the city for some of their activities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Filipaina.
Thanks, Andrew. Look, can you tell me this particular item, agenda item, who does it benefit as a result after 3 years? I see Manukau in there, golf clubs, sports clubs. Once all the money then goes into a regional pot, are there any others from around the region that the regional pot will be putting money into? Or is it just the Manukau golf clubs, the Manukau sports clubs? I sound like that guy on Forrest Gump, eh? You know,
Run, Forrest, run.
Bubba.
So the money doesn't all,
Bubblegum
the money only goes into a regional pot if it's a regional thing. And in that sense, it's not necessarily into a regional pot because some of the regional things are so in the sports space, it'll be in the local pot.
No, okay.
Right, so that's quite a key thing. Sports stuff,
I
local
just
pot.
clarify the question. And sorry, through you, Andrew, I just clarify the question. How many clubs does this affect across the region, or is it just the majority from Manukau, South Auckland?
So it's mainly in North Shore and Rodney
And Rodney, that's
Rodney
it all
and Plankton.
affect?
Not, so there's only 2 properties in Manukau that are getting the postponement, and there's also in Manukau there's a few getting the ARC remission, which
Yeah,
isn't.
but after the 3 years,
Yeah.
it then goes into whether it be sports grounds,
Yeah.
whether it be the regional pot. Am I correct in saying that?
Not quite. So the money for local sports in Manukau would be in a local sports Manukau pot by the local board in their area.
Would that also apply to the North Shore and the Rodney ones?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. That's
Yeah.
that's the point I wanted to make, is that it doesn't go into a regional pot.
No,
It goes into that area where it was.
regional.
If it's local, it stays local.
Cool.
If it's regional, like North Harbour Stadium, then it'll go to Regional Facilities Auckland.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, that cleared that up for you. It's a very important point, I thought. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Noting this is
Comment
going out-
on, yeah.
noting
Chair,
this
if,
Go, Daniel.
Roman numeral 3, if you could just record my opposition to that, because here's what's going to happen. At the conclusion, at the removal of the postponement, the land, I mean, it's just going to become uneconomic, and what's going to happen is that land will be swallowed up for housing. And, you know, having, in my ward, look, there's one golf course that's turned into housing, which is already turning into significant traffic congestion. Well, if they can ever make it work, we'll have the same problem at the old Papakura Golf Course in Belfield Road. I just don't like the end of the. I don't like the conclusion of where this policy is heading, and this policy might not be designed for that outcome, but that outcome is is what we will end up at, as these I think quite valuable sports facilities can no longer operate because of the removal of remissions. So I can see where this is heading around the table. Well, maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. But with respect to Roman numerals 3, I will be against that.
Okay, just remembering that this is not making a decision, this is going out for consultation, so I would urge you then to talk to your community about...
You can be assured that I will, Chair, but I do not support
that's fine.
consultation on the proposition.
All right.
In regards to the 2 golf clubs, I can't name them because this is a public meeting and the Local Government Act requires us to maintain the confidentiality of the recipients of these schemes. I can note that one of the golf clubs is actually paying their rates despite the postponement being available, and the other one has, despite having postponements available to them, sold some of their land for development and paid the rates from it. But certainly that's one of the things that Councillor Newman's raised you'll want to consider. For most of the sports clubs involved, the sums are not material, and it'd be an important thing for the local boards to consider either under the remission scheme or under the grant scheme as to how they want to continue supporting those.
Okay, any other questions or comment? Councillor Sayers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just perhaps a clarification around, rather than 4 units, I know having 4 units, we're down to 2 in terms of the recommendation, in terms of ownership with the scheme clicking in. I'm referring to, you're frowning there at me, I'm just referring to point 4.
Are you on item 16 or on item 15?
I'm on item 15, Madam Chair.
I'm terribly sorry, but item 15 has been and gone.
Twice now.
Oh, yeah.
That's twice now.
So
Somebody give
we're
him a
actually on
coffee.
item 16.
Somebody give him a coffee.
Thank you. I'll go and get
I
myself a
know it's
coffee.
late in the day.
I'll get myself a coffee, Madam
I
Chair.
think that would be a nice idea. Great.
One
tried
sugar,
that- I
Greg, I'll
tried
get
that
it.
argument.
One sugar.
That's a good point, Councillor Sayers, and we're not making a decision now, so it's something to consider
So
at
you
the
can
next
bring it back
stage.
when
Two
we
or four,
decide the...
it's,
Yeah.
that's one of the issues
Okay,
too.
pardon, we're just focused, team. We're on item 16 and we have a comment from Member Taiperi.
Oh, well, I have moved it, Madam Chair, but I moved it because you need to get out there and talk to the people and let the people have a say.
Absolutely.
End story.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Filipina. Any comments or questions to go? No. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Noting that you
On
have
B Roman
voted
numeral
against
3.
B Roman numeral 3. Did you get that, ladies? Yes. Excellent, thank you. Right, 18. Is it just an information report? I'd like to move that report to have a seconder, Councillor Cashmore. Thank you. My question is, are we all on time and on budget? Sorry, on time
And within
and according, within budget, on the work programme?
That's to me, isn't it? Yes.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Good answer.
I'm going to move her and a seconder. Have I?
Yes.
Yes. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. I just want to note that there were no extraordinary business items or notices of motion in this meeting, and then I will now move a procedural motion to exclude the public. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Cashmore? Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
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 Against, carried. Are there any public